Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Daycare podcast. This is your host, Mr. Nipples, and we have Nick on. And tonight,
Hey.
we have a special guest, Dan Terry. Dan, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, well, there's not a whole lot to say. I'm a guy who just really got into ghosts and still do it. I started out after being inspired by an old TV show back in the 70s called Kolchak the Night Stalker. And after that, kept up the investigation until I joined the Coast Guard and found out if you go into a big empty room and talk to dead people no one can see, you don't get promoted. So I had to give it up for a while. But once I got out, basically the same rules applied in the police, which I was a cop for. I've been a cop now for 34 years. And then suddenly Ghost Hunters came out on television, and it all went mainstream, and I started writing about it, and I'm on my 8th ghost book right now. It should be out in the next month or so.
Alrighty. Yeah, that general story was really. Oh, just for anybody listening, General Harney was. The story's great.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. General Harney was quite a man. He was very much a General Patton style guy. You either loved him or you hated him. There was very little middle ground.
There's a lot of other stories in there that caught my attention, but I figure the subject of the show is usually about vets, and well, let's face it, a man that's been in the service for what was it, 40 years, 50 years?
He was actually, I think, in for like 60 years when he retired or something.
Yeah, doesn't get more vet than that.
No, and there's a man who went through some major battles between the Indian Wars and the Mexican War and even the beginnings of the Civil War. He saw his share of combat.
Yeah, and he was a POW.
Yeah. General Harney was quite a man. He was born in 1800, and he lived right down the road from Andy Jackson.
Yeah.
So his father, of course, General Harney's father was a major during the Revolutionary War, so he grew up with this. And his brother was an army surgeon.
Yeesh.
Then when he turned 18, they handed him a commission. He became a lieutenant. And they actually offered him a lieutenant's commission in the Navy at the same time. But he turned that down to work with Andrew Jackson when Jackson went down to run the pirate Jean Lafitte out of the country.
And when he was a major, he made friends with Lincoln, correct?
He was a friend with both Lincoln and the president of the Confederacy, whose name is escaping me at the moment.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, I had it a minute ago, but I can't remember. But yes, he was friends with both of them. And of course, he got in some trouble there in St. Louis when he was charged with whipping his slave to death. It was a woman slave, Hannah. And he got transferred just before the trial. He did come back, and when the furor of it, when the press had died down, and was eventually found not guilty on that.
Jefferson Davis. Sorry.
Jeff Davis, yes. So Davis and Lincoln were friends too. They both served together. So the Civil War was a strange time of friends fighting each other.
Well, there's a lot of brothers fighting each other.
Indeed, there was. There's a monument in Vicksburg, and part of brothers from Missouri, and both units had clashed down there in Vicksburg, Mississippi. So it was brother fighting brother there.
Yeah. I know there's a couple monuments in Pennsylvania from the same thing. It's insane.
But General Harney, and even before he was a general, was not one to hold his tongue. And,
yeah.
Apparently, he had to go down and stop a uprising by Indians in the swamp, the Calusa tribe. So he tracked down, and if I understand correctly, the whole uprising was because the U.S. government, the War Department, had broke their word, so the Indians went on the attack. So he got sent down, and he not only tracked down and shot the Indian chief in the back, but then he scalped him, hung him in the village with his warriors, and then moved the rest of the tribe to Arkansas. But the neat part was he still blamed the Secretary of War for starting it, and told the press at the time that if the Secretary of War was there, he'd have hung him right alongside the chief.
Yeah.
That cannot be good for your career.
Well, he made it.
He made it to general, so who am I to criticize?
Wasn't he a 2-star when he retired?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
And, of course, he fought in the Mexican War, and he took Cerro Gordo, which was apparently quite a battle, and he captured 30 Irish Americans who was there fighting for Mexican independence.
That was brutal.
And, he hung a bunch of them, and including one guy who had both legs amputated and was probably going to die anyway. But he kept the guy alive long enough to hang him. So it's tough.
And then the guys he didn't hang, he made them bury him before he executed them.
Exactly.
Oh.
Well, yeah, he was a very interesting fellow. They originally sent him to Salt Lake City when the Mormon Church decided to declare that their own nation. And they threw out all the federal judges and all the American government officials. And his goal was to go in, shoot Brigham Young, kill the entire council, and set up a fort inside the church there, the Mormon Tabernacle. And suddenly the Army decided, why don't we send you over to fight Indians? Why don't you go over here to Washington instead?
Yeah, you just kill them all, so yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to kill Americans just because they're a different religion.
One of my favorite things was during the Civil War, he was on that train, and that young second lieutenant came on and goes, "I'm sorry, sir, but you are a prisoner." And at 61 years of age, he beat that guy so bad it took 4 of the men to haul him off.
Yeah, he beat that guy almost to death, I understand. He was just there. The lieutenant just wanted to bring him in because they were going to ask him to take over the Confederacy before Robert E. Lee got it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he, like I said, he didn't put up with rebels very well at all.
Yeah, had he taken over the Confederacy, we might have been in trouble.
Well, yeah, Robert E. Lee was a good general, but, God, yeah, this man was brutal. And then there was the one where he almost started a war with England.
Oh, yeah, the Navy, 500 men versus a fleet.
Over the pig. Yeah.
Oh.
Fortunately, there was a British captain who was not going to open fire on the Americans because a pig ate some potatoes.
Yeah. That island is still split.
Yeah, no doubt. So, yeah, he had bought the house in 1872. A guy named Leffingwell built it in 1856. And when he bought it, he got stone quarried from the same quarry to build a wing so it would match. And it was quite a place. And I know that there were underground tunnels there at one time, because a former police chief when he was in the 70s, and he was an officer, talked about chasing someone through the tunnels from there and had come out in a house on the other side of the street.
Oh, wow.
But we was told at one time the tunnels led all the way to the railroad yards about 3 blocks away, but I cannot positively say that's true.
Well, it would make sense for a man that had been in that much combat and seen that much stuff to have an egress system.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was others around here who had the same thing, so it does make sense.
Well, in Germany, I know this is a bit off, but in Germany, there's this place called Chickenburger Tall, and it's way up on top of this hill, and it was a monastery. And 5 miles away, there was what's the place that monks are located at? Uh,
A
you know what I'm
Well,
talking.
yeah.
There was a nunnery and a monastery. I don't know. I don't know what the proper name for both of them is, but uh, for the nunnery.
Okay.
But at Schiffenberger Tall, there was a tunnel that went 5 miles underground over to where the monks were, and the monks were knocking up the nuns, and they were yeah, it was just bad. The historians have found so many babies in the walls; it's ridiculous.
Oh, now that's a place to investigate.
Yeah, well, you'd have to get to Gießen, Germany for that one.
Okay, I'll have to remember that one. Decent. There was a lot of some maybe fire bombings there, wasn't there?
Yes, because the Nazis shot down an American pilot, and the SS was stationed. They had a stationing just outside of Gießen, and they took the pilot, drug him out in the middle of the street, and shot him in the head. And so every bombing run that happened, whether British or American, they saved one round, one munition, and they always dropped it on Gießen.
Okay.
And in fact, it was getting bombed for a week after the war was over.
Wow. Well, I guess there's no end to how angry people can get in war.
Well, can you blame them? I mean,
No,
an unarmed, injured man, you drag him out in the street and shoot him.
yeah. Not surprising for the SS, but
Yeah.
though they used to try and get answers first.
We have a member of our team. Her name is Raven, and she does a lot of this investigation stuff. And we should get you guys together because she's out in the East Coast, not too far from Mr. Nipples. And you guys could have, I'm sure she could show you some really good places.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good. And actually, we are in the process of looking for a place in North Carolina. So we'll be close that way eventually.
Well, if you ever want to come up to North Dakota, I know a few places up this way, too.
Sounds good. I'll take you up on that.
So, in fact, one of them used to be a member of my family's house, and it was in the family for like 100 years until the family decided when the last owner died to leave it to somebody else. So,
I just a few months ago went out to Wilson, Kansas, worked at Road Trip Paranormal out there, and before that, the Tombstone, where I did a 1800s funeral parlor.
Wow.
Yeah, that was shadow people everywhere. It was kind of neat because they seemed to, I don't know how to say it, respect me because of law enforcement. The ghosts were more active than normal, I guess.
That kind of makes sense. There's a place that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There's a old synagogue that's in the middle of, I can't remember if it's Grafenwehr or Hohnsfeld in Germany. And it got bombed in the middle of Mass on a Saturday.
Oh, God.
And during a certain night every year, there's lights that you can see coming out of this building. But when you get up and look in the door, it's dark inside.
Need to bring a sensitive in to see what he sees in there.
It's one of those eerie things, and you just stay away from it. It's.
I don't know. That's my kind of place, man. I got called in by St. Louis Paranormal, about 3-4 years ago, to do the Fox Theater in St. Louis. And I'm sitting there with these guys, and the manager is telling us, there's a ghost back here behind the stage, and there's one in the projection room who throws things when women come in, and there's one over here. But there's one downstairs, but we don't go there. That's the mean one. Now, the first place I got to go.
Downstairs.
I am down to the mean one. And that was exciting. After that, I actually never got to leave that room. Because the ghosts would only talk when I was there. And I got video, which I show when I'm doing lectures, where all these machines are around. This team's got really the best of equipment. And every one of them, when I got up to walk out, went crazy. Just started white noise, loud, crazy, just trying to get attention. So I said, do you want me to stay? And everything quieted down.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up staying and talking to the ghost some more. And now, up until this year, for 3 years in a row, we did ghost tours down there in October, every Monday. And they've just named out the Dan Terry room, and that's where I stay. And the ghost in front of the people will set off the meter upon request.
Oh, wow. Hey, Mr.
Tons of video from the box. It's just an amazingly place.
Mr. Nipples, if he ever comes down in your neck of the woods and teams up with Raven, would you join him and possibly do a show from the investigation?
Oh, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I could do that.
Oh, boys, if you want to do that in the springtime, we'll set up a day and I'll make a travel out there. I'm retired. I can do that stuff now.
Yeah.
That would be awesome to do a live show that way.
Yeah, we actually have a place near us too. It's called Fort Monroe. And
oh my God!
Yeah, we live right down the road from Fort Monroe, so that'd be great.
And is that in Virginia?
It is. It's coastal Hampton, Virginia.
I went to training for radar school there in Virginia. Mm-hmm. At hang on, I'm having another mind melt here. It was the last battle of the Revolutionary War, where we drove Lafayette and our guys drove them into the sea. Is it Cornelius that surrendered there?
Oh, I completely.
I bet you Cutter would know.
Boy, I'm sorry, guys. I cannot remember the name of it, but I went to school there.
We've actually got a Coastie on our team.
Okay.
He would know.
Yeah,
he's on duty tonight.
Now there's a battlefield right outside the Coast Guard training station there, and the Coast Guard cutter Monroe used to be stationed there. I don't know if it still is or not, but boy, it's bugging me because it was the last battle of the Revolutionary War. It's the one that Mel Gibson stabbed the horse to death during.
Oh, shoot.
Well, damn.
Anyway, going back to the Harney Mansion, I got the chance. When I was a kid, the Harney Mansion was just a place that was crumbling. There was trees growing up in the main part of it.
That's sad.
It was terrible. And the folks who had it at the time turned it over to a foundation who tried to rebuild it. They were able to stabilize it. And then a few years ago, it went to another group. And they're the ones who was bringing us in to start making some money to turn it around. So we did, I got invited in by a group. At that time, it was called Missouri Paranormal Research. And they knew that I'd lived in that area, and I told them I'd always wanted to do the Harney, but I couldn't get in. And they invited me in, and God, what a place, what a night. They hung a weight from a string. They put a tack or a nail into the doorway and put a string on it, hung a magnet, and that thing was spinning like a propeller. It was just a blur. It was moving so fast.
Oh, wow.
We had the smell of lilacs hit us. We had the smell of cigars. One guy, in fact, the guy is on my team now, but he was taking pictures. The fella in front of him said something grabbed my leg, and he took a picture. And there's actually a hand, and you can, in the picture, make out fingers, like a skeleton hand grabbing this guy's ankle. Damn. It was incredible. So we ghost hunted it, had our adventures, and one of the neat things, we went back, I guess about a year later, and we brought in a newspaper or a radio station who did a live feed from it. And a shadow, and I don't want to say a shadow like a person, a black mass came down between me and the sensitive, Tim Clifton. We were sitting no more than 4 feet apart. We could have reached out and touched each other. And Everybody saw that mist come down. I looked to my right. I could not see Tim. He could not see me, but I could see everyone else in the room on that side of the mist. And it was weird. I've had that happen to me one more time, but just a black wall of blackness, I guess, came down between me and him, and everybody saw it. One radio DJ swears she saw a red face. A couple other people said they saw it too, come out of a hole in the ceiling above us. But Troy Taylor, I don't know if you guys know of him. He writes a lot of books over in the Midwest and on west to Hollywood. And he was doing ghost hunts there after us. And eventually they got enough money that place is now an event center.
Oh, wow.
They saved the building. It looks incredible on the inside. I did a ghost hunt there. Oh, gosh, I guess that was about June or July. This year was our county's 200th anniversary, bicentennial. And I did a series of ghost hunts in the historical buildings around the county for charity, and that was one of them. And the building's just amazing. We cannot go upstairs anymore, but the downstairs is an event center, and it's incredible.
You said something about the dentist room in that house, right?
Yes. Now, there was never a dentist in there, but they was at one point planning to make it a museum, and they got hold of this old dentist chair. And that was in the room where the hand come out of the ground and grabbed the kid's ankle.
Well, you were talking about the smell of rot, and I was like, oh, my goodness.
Yes. Yeah, that had hit us. There was all kinds of odors that come and went. Tell you what, after we did the radio thing, I stuck around to do some more ghost hunting. And the local police, one of them had worked in my department, and I trained him, and then he moved to another department. And he showed up and asked if he could come back. He brought 2 officers with him. And they were there when something upstairs was throwing drywall at us, pieces of drywall.
That's crazy.
It was a shock. I mean, I know there's 3 ghosts in there for sure. One's the one we called the Coward. And he was a little wimpy guy that was afraid of one of the others. That was the one we called the Bully. And I don't want to say that's General Harney. I don't know. But he sure acted like him. And whenever he entered the room, the smell of cigars would hit us first.
That makes sense.
And then when I was in there, and this is the first ghost hunt with Missouri Paranormal. And we were all in this room, and we smelled the cigars, and they could get nothing from him. So I stood at attention, and I identified myself as a member of the Revenue Cutter Service, which is what the Coast Guard was called at the time, and explained to him that we were trying to prove that he was still there, this was still his house, and I respectfully, as if I was talking to a commanding officer, asked him to show us he's there. And the curtains on the window in that room moved about 6 inches, like somebody was peeking in or peeking out.
Wow.
Here's the thing, guys, that window was covered with plywood. There was no wind, no air. That was something moving the side of that curtain 6 inches or so. And after that, he wouldn't talk to me much anymore. But the whole military demeanor triggered him into reacting to us.
That's pretty awesome.
That is.
That happens a lot when I'm dealing with ghosts from the military, be it Civil War or veterans. I learned this when I was a cop. Whenever I was dealing with an intoxicated subject, but he was military, when you called him by his rank, he would straighten up as best he could. And I guess that's just something that's inbred in the military, that when you call them by their rank, they try to have some sense of responsibility. And it's the same thing. When I treated the officers like you treat an officer, they respond.
Yeah, that makes sense, though. That's, yeah. It really does make sense.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please.
You got anything that you're doing tomorrow night, being Halloween and all?
No, I stay home and give out candy, but my house is very, very strongly decorated. I've got a graveyard. I've got, right now, I'm sitting in the upstairs room. There are skeletons dancing on the two windows facing the street, and the window facing the graveyard has wraiths floating up it. Green, rose, glowing eyes. I have projectors on the windows.
I just set those up as well. Those things are so neat.
Yes. And for Christmas is amazing when the kids come by and have to see Santa Claus walking in my upstairs. Last year, I had a 7-year-old knock on my door with Dad behind him, and he asked me if he could please come in and talk to Mr. Santa. It was so cute. I had to tell him Santa's got a cold and can't see him right now.
That's so great.
But yeah, so I'll be home Halloween giving out candy. We're working on a couple of ghost hunts coming up. I've got a new book coming up shortly. Hopefully in the next month it'll be available. And, stuff just goes on. I'm looking forward to some new ghost hunts, maybe out in the Virginia area.
Yeah, Raven is I don't know if you call her a sensitive or a psychic, or she does readings. And she is beyond accurate. She is, yeah. Her tarot cards she's absolutely amazing. So.
Tarot cards, that's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to meet her. I have dealt with many, many sensitives, and so far I've met 2 that were really true. I'd like to check this one out, too.
Her readings are, yeah. She's usually pretty much spot on, don't you think, they're Nipples?
Oh, yeah, her accuracy's pretty wild.
Well, sounds exciting. So what other kind of ghost places have you guys done?
Actually, them, yeah. Didn't you or did you join Raven on that one that she was doing up and down the coast a while ago?
No, I did not. I wasn't able to.
She's
I haven't really been to any actual ghost hunts. I've had some experiences, but never actually went hunting.
Oh, okay, cool.
There's
down this way we got the Missouri State Penitentiary, and that place is pretty exciting. I was at the Tri-County Truck Stop. Have you guys ever heard of that?
I have not.
No, I haven't.
Tri-County Truck Stop has been investigated by Ghost Adventures, I think, and a show called Fact or Faked.
Yep.
They came in, they checked everything, come back and said, all right, the stories we got from this group are false, but this place is crazy haunted. And I was there. It was one of my historical ghost hunts about a week ago, last weekend. And after everybody left, they let me go ahead with my group and ghost hunt a little bit ourselves. And every time a guy, Mark Farley from St. Louis Paranormal Research, was there with me, and every time we'd stop and talk, the ghost would make a noise. He would kick something, he'd slap sounded like a hand slapping against the plywood on the windows.
Oh, wow.
And we'd go look and not find anything. The ghost would stop. So then we'd come up with the idea of ignoring it. And it made some noises. We didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, it made a noise that sounded like a couple of 2x4s being slammed on the floor.
Damn.
It came down because they thought we'd slammed the door shut. And they thought we slammed the door shut so hard it might have shattered a window because it was so loud to them. So we sat around and we were talking, and it started again. I had 2 lanterns set up. It's 1 in the morning, no electricity in this place. I had 2 lanterns set up in the room, and we could see the light fade. And it would grow darker and darker, and then we'd get a noise or something like a feet scuffling across the floor, and then it'd get brighter again. And at one point, we just kept ignoring it, and the ghost literally, and I'm serious, guys, it went
Wow.
a cough like it's clearing its throat. And it echoes. It was so loud, and we're looking at each other, and who, don't pay attention to it; it'll go away. But that was incredible.
I've done
the more noises it made, and every time before it made a noise, the lights would dim out. So it was getting the energy it needed to do whatever it was going to do.
That's neat. There's I did 2 when I was down in Cedar Rapids, Iowa for a while. One, there's believe it or not, they have a witch's grave. They actually burned her at the stake and gave her a grave.
Really?
And, yep, inside, within a certain radius of this thing, it is, no matter if it's 100 degrees outside, it is chilly as hell within a certain distance of this grave.
Now, I've got to see that. There's a witch's grave next town over, but it's nothing like that. I got to see this one.
And every time you try and take a picture of the tombstone, it's blurry. No matter if it's on a tripod or what, the picture comes out blurry. So that's interesting.
I got to get the city that's in so I can go see that.
And then they had a bridge.
Stone.
Yeah, I don't know what the witch's name was, but it's in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Okay. I was at the witch's grave in Yazoo City, Mississippi, and they still got logging chains on the grave to keep her down. But this one is Cedar Rapids. I got to get there. That sounds awesome.
And then before the flood, they had the last flood, they had a bridge that if you parked on it, there used to be a train that went across it. And then, of course, train's been long since deactivated off that spot because bridge doesn't sound anymore. But if you parked your car on this bridge, and your car would start moving, you put it neutral, it would move up across the bridge. So if you covered your head with your car with flour, there'd be handprints all over the trunk of your car. So,
and I wish I could see that. That would be cool too.
Yeah, that bridge went down in the last flood that they had down there in Cedar Rapids.
I was stationed for a while in Omaha, but I never got to do any ghost hunting. Like I said, when you ghost hunted back in the 80s in the service, you didn't get promoted, so I had to hide it. I'd like to go back up there, though. That sounds like there's a lot of stuff in those 2 states.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff up here in North Dakota from, the old farmers and stuff that would get sick as a dog and die on the farm. A lot of Indian, I hate to say Indians, but a lot of natives came out. There's a lot of killings from that too up here, and there's some crazy stuff. Because Great Grandma's house it's been investigated so many times. It is nuts at night. It's been turned into a children's museum, but it's absolutely insane. It's called Yunker Farm.
Okay.
It is insane.
And that's your family, huh?
Yeah, that's my great grandma.
Wow.
My mother's grandmother. So
but we've done a lot around here, and I've got a new book coming out on the next town down from us, which is Washington, Missouri. The biggest article for that one is a place called the John Bush Brewery. You guys are familiar with a little drink called Budweiser, right?
Oh, yeah.
The guy who started Budweiser, Adolphus Bush, learned to make beer from his older brother, John, who had a brewery in Washington. And that brewery is still there, the mansion's still there, and the place never, ever disappoints. That place is crazy, crazy haunted. And we've got pictures of, it was taken of a ghost bride who was there at a wedding dinner. And she was in a full wedding gown, and it was just an outstanding capture. So I was there. This was taken on a Saturday. I was there on Friday. And the folks were putting the dishes out and getting everything ready. The lady who ran that, she actually rented that part of the place from the owners at the time. And she hated the idea of ghosts. She didn't want me to talk about it. She didn't want me. I never investigated that part. But the owner of the building had sold some tickets for a charity for a little ghost game, kind of a contact session. So we did it, and she come up to me, the owner the owner of that business, and she said, "Whatever you bring here, you take home with you." And she was dead serious. She didn't like me being there. And we did our thing, didn't have any issues at all. And then the next day, they photographed this ghost in a wedding dress in there. And I know that woman hates me to this day. And I got a copy of it. It'll be in my next book. And we was back there for part of this historical thing. Some new people bought it about a year ago and threw out all the occupants and are totally rebuilding the building, doing an amazing job. And for historical purposes, they let me back in. And we come across a ghost in there who didn't like policemen. And there were 3 of us in there that night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was a coward. We could hear him before. We ghost hunted that before. And he was on a ledge above us. It was steps over a couple of bathrooms they'd built in. And the steps went up to a door up there, and he was stomping up there, but he would not come down. Well, he came down this time, and I left the room, and he was doing his thing, and he was saying stuff over the obelisk. And they come and got me, and they said he was threatening the female investigators. So I showed up, and I walked up. There was a K2 meter and a Cambridge, which is from Cambridge Labs. It's a K2 meter that beeps. And I walked up and I threatened him. I said, "What are you going to do to me? You can't do nothing to me. You're a coward." And the sensitive, Tim Clifton, who was with me, says, "Dan, don't turn your back on him." And I said, "What's he going to do to me, Tim?" And I turned my back, and the meter went to red and went beep, 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 beep. I thought he was going to stab me in the back with this. And we got that on video. So the place is incredible. And I can't tell you why it's haunted, except maybe the limestone blocks it's built out of. But we had a good time there over the course of about 10 years. I've investigated that place over and over again. And it has never disappointed. If you guys get a chance to come down, I've got some places around here we got to go to.
Well, believe it or not, I've never actually met Mr. Nipples.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been doing this show for over a year now, and we've never met face to face.
Oh, well, how did you guys get together then?
A group of friends, what's the best way to put it, Mr. Nipples?
Basically just a group of friends online.
Yep.
Okay.
We actually met through Raven.
Wow. Well, hey, if it works, awesome.
So, yeah, this show started out as something else for a different organization, and there were some issues, and we were like, you know what, let's do our own thing.
So is paranormal your normal topic, or do you have a variety of topics?
We focus on vets and their stories and experiences, and
Gotcha.
anything to do with the veteran community or anybody that helps out or whatever. We've had authors. We've had the guys on that do both the Private Murphy and the G.I. Lowe comics.
Okay, yeah.
We had a vet on a couple weeks ago. He's final stages of his stage 4 cancer. In fact, his doc told him that if there was such a thing, he'd have stage 6. We've had guys that are fighting for veterans' rights. He was told that he had 6 months to live 2.5 years ago. Yeah.
Too tough.
Yes. We've had guys on that are fighting in D.C. for veterans' rights. We had Ms. Nevada on a while ago. Just kind of this, that, and the other. And we had a nuclear cleanup vet.
Sounds like you do a lot of work with the veterans, and that's great. That's incredible.
Yeah, we try and get active duty, but they're kind of hesitant to come on because command can be kind of, you know,
Oh yeah,
we had
yeah.
a
Just
active.
how old fashioned your boss is.
Yep, we did have an active duty Coast Guard member come on. In fact, he's a
Oh
member of
wow.
our team. That was fun.
Well, I'd
So
like to meet him too. I served on the North Wind, and before that, I was on the Gasconade there in Omaha, Nebraska.
he's stationed up in just outside of Chicago right now, working that area. But he's currently in Charleston, South Carolina, getting law enforcement training.
Charleston is a very haunted place. I got to ghost hunt a couple spots there a few years ago. And I tell you what, I actually was going to Savannah, and I stopped off in Charleston, and they treated me so well there. I stayed there for a while. Then went down to Savannah to a guy named Greg Profit. He's retired Coast Guard, and he runs a haunted pub crawl in Savannah. And he's a blast. I mean, you guys know how retired military are.
Oh
Pretty
yeah,
easy going, and nothing. How do you say it? Nothing gets you going. You know what I mean? Retired military just are cool no matter what happens. You
yeah,
can't. What's that?
they've lost the care.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's like, hey, I got a pension. What are they going to do to me now?
Yep.
So yeah, if you get the chance to go see Greg Profit in Savannah, it's a hellacious good tour, and he's a blast because he's retired Coast Guard.
I got a chance to view. Now I can't remember what the name of the house is, but there's a house in Son of a Biscuit. What is it? It's in Minnesota. It's on the Great Lakes. It's a huge house up on a hill. It's the
Okay.
house they used for. It's the house they used the outside of it for Psycho.
Oh,
Shoot,
okay. I can picture the house. I don't know anything about it, but
it is so haunted. I got a chance to go through that one, and that was just. There's an eerie feeling. You step in the door, and it's just wrong.
oh wow,
Yeah, it's yeah.
I
And then
gotta check that.
I got to go through what's her name? She gave her father 40 wicks. Liz
Oh, Elizabeth.
yeah.
Yeah,
Shoot.
okay.
I got to see
Another
her
one.
house and that's yep. That's another one that's got an eerie feeling to it.
I've heard that. I've never been there, but I have heard that that place really is haunted. I just don't know if I want to get there yet or not. Did you stay the night or just tour it?
I toured it. It was just before sundown and it was if we weren't on the road and on the move at the time, I would have asked to stay the night, but yeah.
You
I do a
know,
lot of traveling
maybe
and
we need to find a place like that and do an all nighter with all night show.
That would be really
I'm
cool.
sure there's I'm sure there's a lot down in Virginia that you guys could hit up.
Most likely.
There's a lot of forts down there.
Like I've heard of Fort Monroe. Was Ghost TV's Ghost Hunters there and
Yep.
had some adventures? Yeah, I saw that episode.
I believe they did. We were there last time, or it wasn't last time I was there. It was my fiance. She was there. Her and her friend were basically just walking around through part of the fort, and there's like a door. They usually have chained shut, but it was like cracked, and they were like
Uh-huh.
reading the little like the plaques on the walls and stuff they have there, and then all the lights just cut off randomly. And there's not a motion detector or anything, so there's no reason they should. So they ran out of the tunnel from the fort, turned back around, and the lights were back on. Scared the shit out of
Ghost
them.
Hunters actually did 2 Halloween specials there, so
Oh wow.
yeah.
That sounds like a place I got to check out someday.
If you ever get over to Europe, I've got a list of places for you to check out that are just insane.
That's a
It's,
bucket list.
Normandy Beach, if you can be there at night, it is. Oh, it's insane. I'm telling you, it's.
I
Yeah.
actually had uncles on the first and third wave of that attack. They both survived, but I'd still love to be there just to see it.
Well, just think there was uh, engineers that were dying on, clearing the landmines, and there's a group of them that decided that they were going to make a perfect path up there, and they literally died and stabbed themselves with red flags marking where the
Uh-huh.
mines were. They'd stab it through their hand or through the leg if they found a mine, and they laid on top of it and stabbed their bodies. So that way, if
Damn.
they died, the mine was still marked. And I mean, there's bunkers up there that are haunted out the wazoo.
I've heard of
Um,
that.
I'm guessing I'm guessing they'd never allow it, but I went to a couple of the camps that were there, and just going into some of those chambers is you can just feel it. There's just, you walk in and you get overtaken with a feeling of sorrow, and some of those rooms that still have the gold teeth in them is, I'm telling you, there's something there.
I have no doubt.
There's an entire town that was on the East German side of the Berlin Wall. I don't know if you know how, not the entire wall was actually a wall. They had a false fence in some parts, and then a fence that collapsed,
Uh-huh.
and they built towns in between. So some of those towns were guarded at times, and some of them weren't. You never knew what was. Well, if you got over
Right.
the first fence and you went to get over the second fence, it would collapse and cut off your fingers. It was razor sharp, and it would just collapse and cut off your fingers. So you weren't climbing over, and then they'd catch you while you were sitting there bleeding to death. Well, there was towns in between, and sometimes there were guards in there, and they'd pick people off if they got over the first fence. And those towns are just, oh, it's eerie.
That is incredible. I've never heard that story before. That's amazing.
And then there's a small town in France, just outside of Rust, France, that the Germans rolled through, and they firebombed the entire town while everybody was still in their homes. Just firebombed everything. Didn't give people warning, didn't tell anybody anything. There was no reason for it either. It was just a marker on the way, and they didn't want to stop. Just firebombed everything.
It was a different time, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I got to investigate a place called Mine Creek in Kansas. General Price's men during the Civil War was trying to make their escape into Arkansas over a creek right there. And the Union Army was behind them. They set up men, a small detachment, to basically sacrifice themselves trying to stop the Union long enough to get across the creek, which was flooded that day. And I was back there at the creek with Kansas Paranormal Research Society. They'd invited me in. I was down there with them, and suddenly I don't know how many, hundreds of owls started screeching all at once.
Ooh.
Now, just before that, we were starting to walk back from the scene of the crossing to the battlefield when we could hear footsteps around us. There was, like 8 or 10. And they would walk with us, and then when we'd stop, they would take another step or two before they stopped. But we couldn't see it. Then the owls went off. And I mean, it was screeching like something from The Birds from that early 70s movie.
Yeah.
It was so loud. And we was walking back because I had people wanting to run. I'm saying, no, we're not going to run. We're going to walk. We could hear the footsteps around us. We got to this little tiny bridge that one person at a time could go over. It was arched over a tiny little stream. And when the last person stepped foot off that bridge, owls stopped immediately, like right there. Screech, stop. And it was total silence, which was even louder after all that noise. Wow. But it was like once we crossed that bridge, Okay, now you're fine. Don't come back.
Holy smokes.
I had about 6 people with me, and they were all freaked out on that one.
Speaking of which, there was that town that you did. Oh yeah, that's what you're talking about. Abilene. Yeah, Abilene is what you're talking about, right?
Old Town Abilene, yes.
That
Again, I
one.
was a guest of Kansas Paranormal. Went into and what they had done back in the 50s, they collected old buildings from the 1800s that were rotting away and brought them all in and made a street out of it and made it an Old West, kind of like an Old West attraction, which it's still there. And just on a side note, they had gunfights like 5 times a day, every 2.5 hours or something on this street. And I was there waiting for the ghost hunt to start, and I was watching that. One of the ghost hunters for Kansas Paranormal was one of the gunfighters there. So he invited me in with the other gunfighters, and we were sitting there talking, and they seemed to like me. So they invited me to have a shot and a snort. So it's the Shot and Snort Club. And the first thing they did was take me outside and hand me a replica of a Civil War handgun with a cap and powder but no bullet. And they just said fire. And I said, man, I got a better gun right here. It's a .357 Magnum. No, we want this. So just fire that one. I said, at what? He goes, that pole. It doesn't matter. Just fire it. So I shot one round. Then they took me in and poured the whiskey. And I said, do you want ice? And I said, boys, my father would jump from his grave and strangle me if I put ice and shot a good whiskey on. And these guys are sipping it, and I took it down in one shot because that's the way I was trained. And I was then a member of the Shot and Snort Club. Anyway, so we start the ghost hunt, and there's a building back there, and they don't want to go in it because that's the one with the bad ghost again. And no, I'm going in there. So they all went with me, and the floors of this building was so rotted that they had diamond steel planks, for lack of a better word, strips of steel across the floor joists. And we went back into a room that was loaded with lumber loaded on tables, on sides, 2x4s and 4x4s on a corner, just laying there. We started communicating with the spirits, trying to get someone to talk to us. It got really, really cold, and then a pile of that lumber got kicked. It's the only way I can describe it. It's like the bottom of it, where it was on the floor, got kicked, and all of it came down.
Sheesh.
And the Kansas people wanted to run. And they started, one person in particular said, get out. And I yelled out, stop. Because these people are going to break their necks trying to get through that on that diamond steel planking, all of them at once. And as soon as I said stop, at least 4 of us, including me, saw a shadow man run from one corner into the next room.
Sheesh.
Because we stood up to, I said no, and he had done his thing, and now he was running. So we went into the next room where he ran. And after a while, I finally made contact with him, and he claimed to be a Marine sergeant. Now, this is an Army area. There's an Army base nearby. But he said he was a Marine sergeant who had retired sometime after World War II, and he didn't want anybody in that building. So I don't know if he lived there before it was moved in, or if he just liked the place and died and went back there, but he would communicate with me by dowsing rods. And the meters would go off and all of that. It was pretty exciting, but that was a fun trip, let me tell you.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty awesome.
I've been very fortunate in that I have a lot of friends in other groups, and they will invite me with them onto these things. Kansas Paranormal, Road Trip Paranormal, St. Louis Paranormal, Gateway Paranormal Team. these guys are really great, and they're always willing to give me a call and invite me in. And I've been in some amazing places thanks to these people.
Stupid question.
Shoot.
Have you ever thought about doing the old barracks in Hawaii?
I would love to. I have heard some stories from people there, both on Coast to Coast AM and in person, people who were stationed,
Yeah, that's
who
what I
tell
heard
me
from.
some of the stuff there. And God, I would love to be there. I'd love to go to Gettysburg and just be left with two or three people out there. It's just, there's so much of this going on now.
Another place that would be really interesting is biscuits and gravy. Philadelphia, the old Capitol building.
That sounds
Uh,
interesting.
Yeah, it's where the old national Capitol. It's got the Liberty Bells out front now.
Uh-huh.
That would be really interesting to get in there.
Boy, to make contact with somebody like Lincoln, or I'm sorry, Washington or Franklin or Jefferson.
Yep.
Oh God, what could you find out from those guys?
That'd be something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I've made contact with Harney. I've made some really neat stuff with the Bush family, but boy, to talk to Thomas Jefferson or John Adams, man, that would be awesome.
Yeah, there's a few old Viking settlements here in the U.S. that'd be really cool to hit too.
No doubt. Can you even imagine that talk? Boy, I don't know if you can even communicate with them, but
Well, you got to remember they were a people of tongues. They learned languages faster than anybody.
that's true. I've heard that. They were an intelligent group. Well, hey, I'm willing.
In fact, isn't there one out by you somewhere, Mr. Nipples?
No, most of them are up north, and there's one out westish, like northwest.
I know there's a couple of the ruin stones up by me out here by Minot, but
Mm.
I don't know if there was a settlement out here. I know there's one up there on the island. What's that stupid island that's part of Canada?
Oak Island?
It's the one where everybody runs in the zombie movies.
Ooh, I forgot.
I can't remember. Oh well. But yeah, it's a straight just north of New York there, or just east of New York, or I don't know.
Okay, to go back, and I realized, just hit me, Lizzie Borden.
Yes, thank you.
That's the name we couldn't remember. Elizabeth. I kept hitting Elizabeth. Lizzie Borden.
Yep. That house is creepy as can be.
Oh, that's one I'd like to see too. Now, I've been in the Lemp Mansion, which has been on all the TV shows up here in St. Louis. And St. Louis Paranormal's taking tours through there now, but I have yet to have any experience other than watching shadow people run around. They say it's very haunted. I haven't had much of it happen yet.
North Dakota's got a place called see, that's going to escape me now too. Barnesville, and it's basically like that town that you went to in Kansas, and they went through North Dakota and found some of the oldest buildings they could from different periods, right? And collected them all in one small area, from churches to banks to town hall buildings to police stations. And there's been some stories that have come out of that place from the workers that work there at night. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, we're actually about to hit an hour.
Alrighty. Real quick, we
talking with you guys.
have a tradition, and I can't let you skate. We have a tradition that our guests tell an embarrassing story that they either witnessed or took part in from their time in service. So I know you've got at least one, because you used to go and talk to dead people in an empty building. So
yeah, boy, that's a tough one to think of. I wish you'd told me earlier. I'd have thought longer. Boy, I'm just not placing it now. I mean, there was the time the Captain Caster on the North Wind told me my mustache was a error, no, a failure. That was my first dress inspection on the North Wind, and he just come up to me and first thing he did is said, "There's shaving cream in your ear," and then he said, "Your mustache is a failure," and walked off.
Yeah, that definitely counts.
That counts. I'll take it.
We had a guy.
Well, if we do this again, I'll try and think of something else, but that's the only thing that comes to mind at the moment.
Keep in touch, and we will get you in contact with Raven to do some.
It sounds exciting, yeah.
Some investigations. We'll get in touch with Mr. Nipples and Raven, and get you guys to do an investigation sometime this coming summer. So
we'll do it.
She has a lot of good places to go.
Well, I don't mind traveling. Now, my website is spookstalker.com. She can communicate with me through there or contact me through that. And, I really look forward to getting out that way. It sounds like fun.
And let me know if you want to come up this way, and we'll figure something out.
All right. Hey, we'll do it, man. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You guys have a good one. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Later.
Right.
All right. Our friend, our friend Patrick is, he's still around. He's not doing so well right now. He's having a hard time getting out of bed, but he said it best that the guys that we've lost down range would give anything to be here. So live for them, if nothing else. And, if nothing else, reach out to Patrick. Because I'm telling you, if you need somebody to talk to and you don't want to talk to anybody else, someone that will take your stuff with him, he's not going to be here a whole lot longer. He's willing to talk to you, and I promise you, he ain't going to tell anybody else.
Yeah.
He ain't going to be around long enough to tell anybody. So, but he's good people. And he said it best, man. He live for them. They'd give anything to be here with their family and friends. Mm-hmm. So, with that said,
I had a friend that had some bad thoughts over the weekend, and it was it's hard to talk to him about, but it's better to reach out to people than having them have to pry it out of you, because he didn't reach out to me or anything, but I noticed the way he was talking, and decided to just make the call, and apparently it helped out a lot, so I'm glad I was able to talk to him.
Actually, I had a guy I served with that's been dealing with some shit, and he reached out to Belen and he's been talking to us. That's good. So that's where I've been tied up the last few weeks.
Yeah, so don't even wait for people to come to you to talk. Like if you notice your friend's down and having a hard time, or he's just not acting himself, make sure you just reach out to them.
On the upside, we're getting that guy out of the situation, and we're getting him moved and getting him the help he needs. So. Good. Yeah, just asking for help can make a total difference. Even if you think somebody can't help, they might know somebody that can.
Oh yeah.
So, with that said, guys, it's been great, and we've got a guest for next week lined up already. And week after that, I think I know somebody else that's coming on. But next week's guest is gonna come on and talk to us about California.
Oh boy.
He's a refugee from California. So, that's going to be fun.
The flaming hot state.
Yep. Best pickup line right now in California is, I got power.
Yeah.
So,
it's also, hey, my house is burning down.
If you're in California and you're on Tinder trying to get a date, just put, I have power. It'll get you laid. She'll stay with you 2 or 3 days, put up whatever you want. So, all right. With that said, I want to thank the dog for doing her job. President Trump released a video from that raid. It's up on our website, up on our Facebook page. Yep. And next week we will be having a contest based off the episode for a sticker, a Daycare podcast sticker. So you'll have 24 hours after the episode airs to to reach out with the answer, and we'll do a drawing off of that. So,
Sweet.
all right, all. You have a good one.
You too. Everyone have a good night.